The Dallas Stars are 7-3 in their last 10 games and have just moved back into the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference. There's a clear path to the playoffs for Dallas if they can continue playing the way they have for the last couple of weeks. We'll take a look at that path right now. Hey everybody, so today we are going to be taking a look at the Dallas Stars and their potential path to the playoffs this year. They're another team that in a lot of ways kind of controls their own destiny. If they keep playing well and they keep winning games, they're not going to have to rely on other teams because they have games in hand over their biggest competition. And it's going to be all about just taking care of business for Dallas, and that should be enough to get them into the postseason this year, at least as a wild card team in the West. But we're going to take a look at the standings. We're going to take a look at their remaining schedule and talk about what Dallas has to do to make sure that their season continues into May. So let's start here by taking a look at the standings. Western Conference right now, obviously very tight battle for those last wild card spots. But what I really want to focus on are these three teams right here, Nashville, Dallas, and Vegas. Because at the end of the day, I think it's really going to come down to these three teams. Two of them are going to get into the playoffs. One of them is going to be on the outside looking in. Yes, Winnipeg and Vancouver still have long shot possibility of getting into a playoff spot, but they're going to need a massive run at the end of the season to do so. Also, I think LA or even maybe St. Louis could drop back into the mix if they go through a losing streak and maybe end up down more in a wild card position. But they would have to start losing for that to happen. I think at the end of the day, it's about these three teams right here. The Nashville Predators at 84 points, the Dallas Stars at 83, and the Vegas Golden Knights at 82. The biggest thing that jumps out of right off the page is the total number of games played and how many games are remaining for each of these teams. Nashville and Dallas have played 69 games and have 13 remaining in the regular season. Vegas, who is a point behind the Stars right now for that last spot, has already played 71 games. So they only have 11 games remaining in the season. That gives Nashville and Dallas both 2 games in hand on the Vegas Golden Knights. I think those could end up being very, very important here down as we get towards the end of the season. The other thing, Vegas has played very well recently. They're 7-3-0 in their last 10. And they've won 5 straight. And they still haven't moved into a solid playoff spot yet. Why? Because Dallas is also 7-3-0 in their last 10. So Vegas has put this big push on to try and move into a playoff spot, to try and catch up the teams ahead of them. And Dallas has equaled their record in their last 10, which really hasn't allowed Vegas to gain any ground on Dallas, despite playing as well as they have. Dallas has played just as well and has kept Vegas back there 1 point behind. So Vegas and Dallas have kind of been flip-flopping in the standings over the past couple of weeks, but those games in hand could end up being the difference for the Dallas Stars. Let's look ahead to their schedule now for the rest of the season, because it's not an easy one. They've got some tough games in there, but they also have some very winnable games in there looking at what's remaining. Now, they have 13 games left, which is a pretty good amount. They haven't even played 70 games yet. However, they play tomorrow night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto's been very hot. That's going to be a tough game, no doubt about it. But then they have a very winnable game on Saturday against the Devils and another very winnable game on Sunday against Chicago. So if you look at it there, back-to-back on the weekend, but both against non-playoff teams. Then they have a couple tough games next week against Tampa Bay and Minnesota. Now they are at home, which is good for the Stars, but very difficult opponents there, both quality teams. Then they play against San Jose next Saturday. Again, that's more of a winnable game. Then they go on a Western Canadian road trip. They've got Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, all on the road. Obviously, Vancouver's a game that they should probably win. Edmonton and Calgary, those are tough opponents. Feels like Dallas probably needs to pull out a win against one of them. And then they finish out the season with a 4-game homestand. Seattle, huge game against Vegas. Think about if the standings stay the way that they are right now. Think about how huge this game on the 26th against Vegas could be. That could be a game that decides who goes to the playoffs and who doesn't potentially. Arizona the night after, and then Anaheim to close out the season. So when you look at it here, obviously Toronto, Tampa, Minnesota, Edmonton, Calgary, Vegas, those are really tough games. I mean, those are quality opponents, and Dallas is going to have to pull off some wins against quality opponents down the stretch here. And, those are going to be difficult ones to win. However, New Jersey, Chicago, San Jose, Vancouver, Seattle, Arizona, Anaheim. Those are games that Dallas needs to win and are teams that Dallas should be beating. And if you look at it, with 13 games remaining, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games here remaining that I would call should be wins for the Dallas Stars. If Dallas wins 7 of their remaining 13 games, and that's only going 7-6 in their remaining games, that is another 14 points. They're at 83 right now. That would get them to 97 points on the season, and I think 97 would get them into the playoffs. So if Dallas takes care of business against the teams that they should beat, they should be getting into the playoffs this year. And again, those games in hand over Vegas may turn out to be the difference. Also, this head-to-head matchup against Vegas could also play a huge role in one of these teams going to the playoffs and the other not. Last thing I want to touch on here is look at all of these home games. Of the remaining 13 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of their last 13 games are on home ice. And if we go back here to the standings page, let's look at the difference between home and away record for the Dallas Stars. Away record, 18, 17, and 2. They're barely above 500 on the road this year. However, their home record, 22, 9, and 1. Dallas is a very, very good home team this year. They're 500-ish on the road, but they're very good at home, and they've got 9 of their last 13 games coming on home ice. That is going to be, again, a huge boost for the Dallas Stars and their chances of getting into the playoffs this year. So, as it stands right now, Dallas, 83 points, final wild card spot, 2 games in hand over the Vegas Golden Knights. They have one more head-to-head matchup against Vegas on April 26th, and they have 13 games remaining. Vegas, as of right now, only has 11. So games in hand favor Dallas as well. Now, those games in hand don't mean anything if Dallas doesn't get points out of them, but it gives them another couple opportunities to get points where Vegas cannot get points and stay ahead of them in the standings. They also have so many home games remaining, and they've been very, very good on home ice this year. Signs are pointing towards Dallas being able to make the playoffs this year. Signs are pointing towards Dallas making it. The end of the day, I think Dallas is in a situation where they very much control their own destiny. If they win the games that they are supposed to win, they are probably going to be going to the playoffs. And it may only be a point or two over the cut line at the end of the year. Again, if they go 7-6 the rest of the way, that's 97 points for the Stars. That may only get them in the playoffs by 1 or 2 points ahead of a team like Vegas, or if somebody else drops back. But if they get the job done against the teams that they should beat, Dallas is probably going to be making the playoffs as a wild card team this year. And then, once they get to the playoffs, who knows what's going to happen? Obviously, they're going to be playing against a tough team. A 1 seed for either, division. Either it's going to be Colorado or Calgary, most likely. Not going to be an easy first-round matchup for the Stars, but they'll at least have made the playoffs. And again, once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. So it's going to be really interesting to see Dallas down the stretch here, but they've got quite a few games left. They got 2 games in hand over Vegas, and they're 1 point ahead. I think as long as they keep, winning the games that they should win, it's looking good for them to be a postseason team this year. However, if they drop off, you know, if they only win 5 of the remaining 13 games or something like that, then it gets a lot dicier for the Stars, and there's certainly no lock to make the playoffs yet. This is certainly no guarantee. You know, they've got themselves in a situation where they are in a decent shape to make it, but they've still got to keep playing the way that they've been playing. If they drop back and go below 500 in their final 13 games, now we're looking at a much dicier situation and a much better chance that they may end up on the outside looking in. So it's really up to them to win the games that they're supposed to win. But that is the path to the playoffs for the Dallas Stars here in 2022. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you all so much for watching. With that, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our merchandise store, membership, and donation links are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.